Today, let's learn how to conjugate the verbs ending with ER in French at the present tense. Alright, as you maybe know, there is in French 3 different groups when we talk about verbs. You do have the first group with verbs ending with ER, the second groups are the verbs ending with IR, and then you will have the third group verbs ending with IR, RE or OIR, which is basically a melting pot of all the irregular verbs we have in the language. So let's have a look to how to conjugate the first group verbs ending with ER. You're gonna need for this to get rid of the infinite termination, which is ER in that case. Let's say we're using the verb parler. ER, when you talk about a verb, ER is pronounced et, parler. You're gonna get rid of this ER termination and you're gonna have to replace it by the termination adapted to the subject you have. In English it's quite easy, it's more or less always the same, isn't it? In French, every termination will be a tiny bit different. Let's have a look to the verb parler. Je parle. We got rid of ER and we replaced it by I, which is the termination that goes with je. I speak, je parle. Tu parles, you speak, tu parles. Il, elle parle, il, elle parle, he or she speaks. Nous parlons, nous parlons. ER is replaced when you say nous by ONS. Nous parlons. Vous parlez, vous parlez. You speak. You in this case being plural, like if you talk to more than one person, or if you want to show politeness. If you want to talk to a friend or a member of your family, you can use tu if you're talking to one person. If not, you're going to have to use vous. And the last one, il or elle parle. Il, elle parle. In English, you will translate this by they. But in French, we make the difference. Il being masculine and elle being feminine. Now, grammatically speaking, males are stronger, which means that if you want to say they, and you have in this group 5 girls and 2 boys, grammatically speaking, boys will be stronger, even if there is less boys than girls in this they. So you will have to say il. That's how it works. Il, elle parle. They speak. Alright, you might have noticed one thing interesting right here. It's when you say je parle, tu parles, il, elle parle, and il, elle plural. Parle, it sounds exactly the same. Yes, it does, which will be probably easier to remember for you, even if the termination is a tiny bit different sometimes. So just be careful with how you write it, but the pronunciation will be exactly the same, even if you have ENT at the end of they in French. Il, elle parle. Most of the time, ENT will be pronounced en. Like if you say, for example, le vent. Le vent means the wind. ENT, en, because it's a noun. But when it's a verb conjugated with they, you won't pronounce it. It will sound like a e. Il, elle parle. And this will be always the case. So if you have a sentence where you're gonna see ENT at the end of a word, just check out, is that a verb, is that a noun, and if it's a verb, is it conjugated with they? And if that's the case, you pronounce e. Il, elle parle, il, elle mange, it will be always e, like this. Now, there is one exception with the first group verbs, and that's it, only one verb you're gonna have to be careful with. And this verb is the verb to go. In French, you're gonna say aller. The verb to go will be conjugated a different way. You're gonna say je vais, tu vas, tu vas, il, elle va, nous allons, with a little liaison, nous allons, vous allez, liaison again, Ils, elles vont. Ils, elles vont. Now, let's have a look at few examples. Je mange du chocolat. Je mange du chocolat. Nous allons au musée. Nous allons au musée. Il parle français. Or, elle parle anglais. So be careful when you're going to conjugate a verb using a pronoun subject, which is basically je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. You won't be allowed to write ER anymore. ER is the non-conjugated form and will only be allowed before to conjugate the verb. As soon as you conjugate it, you lose ER and you replace it by the termination we've seen before. Alright, that's it for the first group verbs in French ending with ER. If you have any question, leave a message in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe and à bientôt.